And what if we told you there's a crisis costing European nations billions of euros every year in healthcare and lost productivity? We're not talking about finance, but about health. Today, we'll reveal the ranking of the 10 European countries with the highest percentage of adult obesity. But we won't stop at the borders of the continent. We'll go further for a direct and revealing comparison with the situation in the United States. And if you'd like to know how this ranking would look if we considered only childhood obesity, write children in the comments. We can already tell you that the ranking would be very different, involving completely unexpected nations. Welcome to Amazing Europe, number 10, North Macedonia. In North Macedonia, 6 out of 10 deaths are caused by cardiovascular diseases, a direct consequence of what ends up on the plate and takes root in the social fabric of the country. The heart of local culture beats in a convivial cuisine, which, however, hides a dangerous nutritional imbalance: excess saturated fats, refined carbohydrates, processed meats, and salt. A diet that once suited an active rural society now clashes with modern sedentary lifestyles. Adding to this equation is the widespread consumption of high-calorie spirits, which further worsens the energy balance. The cost of this lifestyle is enormous, and it's not just individuals who pay it. The state faces massive healthcare expenses to manage chronic diseases such as hypertension, which already affects nearly 40% of adults. For families, the cost comes in the form of direct medical expenses and, in the worst cases, the devastating loss of income caused by job loss due to health problems, something far from rare in this country. But the most disturbing element is another one. This health crisis is unfolding in almost total silence. While the data are screaming, the public debate is focused elsewhere, on challenges seen as more immediate, such as the fight against corruption or judicial reform. Obesity simply isn't a priority. This perfect storm of diet, lifestyle, and political indifference leads to a precise figure. 30.6% of North Macedonia's adult population is obese. Number 9. Ireland. How much does obesity cost Ireland? The answer is staggering. Every year, this health crisis drains more than 4.6 billion euros from the nation's economy, between direct healthcare costs and lost productivity. It's not an expense, it's an economic abyss. Its roots lie in a deep and rapid transformation of lifestyle. In just a few generations, Ireland has gone from a traditional diet based on simple, unprocessed foods to one dominated by ultra-processed foods, fast food, and sugary drinks. To this, we must add the omnipresent pub culture, where the regular consumption of beer, rich in liquid calories, contributes significantly to the daily energy surplus. The consequences weigh on the national health system far more than one might think. The exponential rise in type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases lengthens waiting lists and drains vital resources. But the impact is also felt in productivity, with a surge in absenteeism and a decline in workplace efficiency. Yet here, a paradox emerges. The Irish government officially recognises obesity as a chronic disease and has introduced measures such as the sugar tax. Still, every bit of progress is a battle. These initiatives collide with the strong resistance of the food industry lobbies and a cultural reluctance to regulate individual choices. This paradox, a nation that correctly diagnoses the illness but struggles to administer the cure, leads to an inevitable outcome. 30.8% of Ireland's adult population is obese. Number 8. Lithuania. In Lithuania, the life expectancy for men is almost 10 years lower than the European average. This is not a matter of fate, but the result of a health crisis with a clear cause. The mortality rate from cardiovascular diseases is nearly double that of the rest of the Union. This ticking time bomb is triggered by lifestyle. The traditional Lithuanian diet is built on an alarming nutritional profile. An astonishing 37% of total calories come from fats, far exceeding the guidelines. To this, we must add a salt intake averaging 11 grams per day, more than double the recommended limit. And it's not just a matter of blood pressure. Several epidemiological studies have shown a clear link between excessive salt intake and obesity itself. When one of the world's highest levels of alcohol consumption is added to the equation, the picture becomes complete. The consequences are written in medical records. About 1 in 3 adults in Lithuania suffers from hypertension, a direct consequence of this diet. The healthcare system is crushed by costs, and the economy loses lives in their prime working years. But here, the story changes. The Lithuanian government has declared war on this situation, enforcing very strict laws on alcohol and food. It's an open battle between urgent public health policies and deeply rooted cultural traditions. This struggle between past and future, between culture and public health, defines the reality of the country and is reflected in one unmistakable figure. 31.1% of Lithuania's adult population is obese. Number 7. Czech Republic. The Czech Republic holds a world record. For nearly 30 years, it has been the country with the highest beer consumption per capita in the world, about 180 litres per person every year. Translated, that's 75,000 extra calories a year just from beer, the equivalent of nearly 10 kilograms of body weight. This habit fuels a broader crisis. It's rooted in a traditional diet where more than 20% of daily calories come from fats, dominated by red meat and bread dumplings. Adding to this, less than half of the population eats fruit daily, and around 40% of adults are classified as physically inactive. The consequences of this imbalance are written in health statistics. Over 40% of the adult population suffers from hypertension, and about 10% live with diabetes, one of the highest rates in Europe. The cost of managing this situation is immense, consuming up to 9% of the entire national healthcare budget. But here emerges an insurmountable paradox. The authorities know the seriousness of the problem, yet beer represents a national cultural icon, often cheaper than water. Every attempt at regulation is perceived as an attack on national rights. In 2015, when the Minister of Health proposed a law requiring bars and restaurants to offer at least one non-alcoholic beverage cheaper than beer, it triggered such a violent public backlash that the law was immediately withdrawn. This paralysis, where public health collides head-on with cultural identity, results in one clear outcome. 31.3% of the adult population in the Czech Republic is obese. Number 6. Poland. In Poland, men live on average almost 8 years less than women. This is not a genetic mystery, but the result of a series of risk factors that disproportionately affect the male population. This imbalance is fueled by a traditional diet rich in fats and by salt consumption, reaching an average of 11.5 grams per day, more than double the recommended limit. Added to this is a high level of alcohol consumption, 11.7 litres of pure alcohol per capita each year, and an alarming rate of physical inactivity. 1 in 2 adults does not get enough exercise. But Poland adds an almost unique factor: pollution. This is still little known, yet many scientific studies have linked chronic exposure to smog, a serious issue in Polish cities, to an increased risk of obesity. Pollution does not make people gain weight directly, but it damages metabolic control mechanisms, making the body more likely to store fat even when calorie intake remains the same. The consequences are a genuine national emergency. It is estimated that nearly 12 million Poles, 1/3 of the country, suffer from hypertension. And the economic cost of this health crisis amounts to about 1% of the national GDP. Yet, this crisis is advancing in the shadows. While health data outline a clear emergency, public and political debate is often absorbed by other issues, such as judicial reforms and civil rights, allowing this silent pandemic to grow without receiving the attention it deserves. The result is that 31.4% of Poland's adult population is obese. Number 5. Greece. Greece is the cradle of the Mediterranean diet, a model of healthy eating exported and celebrated all over the world. Yet this same nation holds one of Europe's most tragic records. It is among the countries with the highest rates of childhood obesity on the continent, with nearly 1 in 2 children overweight. How could this happen? The answer is an almost cruel paradox. The nation has gradually abandoned its most precious treasure. Today, less than half of the Greek population consumes fruits and vegetables daily, preferring ultra-processed, energy-dense foods. The spark that accelerated this transformation was the devastating economic crisis, which made healthy food a luxury and pushed families toward cheaper and less nutritious alternatives. Added to this is an increasingly sedentary lifestyle, with nearly 45% of adults not getting enough physical activity and one of the highest smoking rates in the European Union. The consequences are already a full-blown epidemic. 1 in 8 adults lives with diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases are the leading cause of death in the country. But the true Greek tragedy is an identity crisis. This is a nation that sold the world a model of health but stopped applying it at home. This perfect storm of lost identity, economic hardship, and shifting habits results in a figure that shatters every postcard image. 33.7% of Greece's adult population is obese, with a higher prevalence among women than men. Number 4. Malta. In Malta, a battle is being fought for the future of its children. The island records some of the most alarming rates of childhood obesity in Europe, with nearly 40% of 11-year-olds overweight. This figure reflects a culture that, despite its geographic position, has turned its back on the Mediterranean model. The modern diet is a triumph of high-energy foods, and almost 60% of children drink sugary beverages every single day. This diet is combined with an almost total lack of physical activity. Despite its small size, Malta has one of the highest motorization rates in Europe. Cars are used for everything, leading almost 70% of the adult population to be physically inactive. The consequences are overwhelming the healthcare system. Diabetes affects more than 10% of the population, and cardiovascular diseases are the leading cause of death, responsible for over 40% of all fatalities. Here, however, the public debate takes a unique turn. There is discussion about a possible genetic predisposition among the population to gain weight, and this creates a dangerous paradox. The risk is that genetics becomes an excuse, a form of fatalism that diverts attention from the real causes of the problem. It is the classic dilemma. Genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. This perfect storm of eating habits, car dependency, and a debate teetering on fatalism leads to a figure that places Malta near the top of this ranking. 34.6% of the adult population is obese. Number 3. Croatia. Croatian men are among the heaviest in Europe. This is not an opinion, it is a fact. Almost 70% of the adult male population is overweight or obese. Croatia faces a deep dietary divide, as if it were two nations in one. In the inland regions, the heavy Austro-Hungarian tradition dominates. Red meats, animal fats, white bread, all conceived for another era. The famous Mediterranean model survives only along the coast, and mostly for tourists rather than residents. The numbers are alarming. Only 30% eat fruit daily, and more than a third do not engage in any physical activity, a situation worsened by alcohol consumption deeply rooted in social life. This geographic divide has dramatic effects on the nation's health. The cost of this lifestyle is written clearly in mortality data. Cardiovascular diseases are responsible for an astonishing 45% of all deaths in the country, one of the highest percentages in Europe. And about 1 in 3 adults suffers from hypertension, putting enormous pressure on the national healthcare system. Here emerges the greatest paradox. Croatia projects to the world the image of a Mediterranean paradise. Crystal clear sea, healthy lifestyle, grilled fish. But it is a facade that hides an entirely different internal reality. The ideal sold to tourists conceals one of the most serious health crises in Europe, unfolding silently far from visitors' eyes. This perfect storm of cultural dualism, sedentary habits, and a misleading tourist image carries weight, literally. A figure that earns Croatia a place on the podium of this ranking. 35.7% of its adult population is obese. Number 2. Hungary. In Hungary, nearly 1/3 of all deaths is directly linked to a single cause, an unhealthy diet. It is a statistic that captures a national crisis. The root of the problem lies in one of the heaviest traditional cuisines in Europe, dominated by animal fats, red meats, and a massive use of salt. The average consumption is among the highest in the world, with a staggering 15 grams per day, 3 times the recommended maximum limit. Added to this diet is a lifestyle in which 60% of adults are physically inactive, and the consequences are inevitable. Life expectancy is 4.5 years lower than the European average. But this is where the Hungarian story becomes a unique and striking paradox. The government did not stand idly by. In fact, in 2011, it became a global pioneer by introducing one of the first junk food taxes, the so-called chips tax. In theory, it was a perfect move. In practice, a failure. Despite this pioneering measure, obesity rates continued to rise. The reason for the failure is a crucial lesson. The tax targeted packaged products, but it could not touch the heart of the problem, namely the traditional home-cooked diet combined with a sedentary lifestyle. It is dramatic proof that a tax alone cannot change a culture or habits rooted for generations. This mix of factors led to a staggering result. 36.4% of Hungary's adult population is obese. Before revealing number one and comparing it with the United States, if you found this video informative, we kindly ask you to support our project with a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming videos. And if you'd like to see what this ranking would look like when considering only childhood obesity, write children in the comments. We can already tell you that the ranking would be completely different, featuring some truly unexpected nations. Number 1. Romania. In Romania, cardiovascular diseases are responsible for nearly 57% of all deaths, one of the highest rates in Europe. To understand why, we must look beyond the modernizing cities to another Romania, the rural one, where almost half of the population still lives. Here, the diet remains tied to heavy traditions, with high consumption of white bread, very fatty pork, and extensive use of oil for frying. Salt consumption is among the highest on the continent, estimated at around 12 grams per day, more than double the recommended limit. Added to this is a lifestyle where 63% of adults are physically inactive. The consequences of this reality are devastating. An alarming 45% of the adult population suffers from hypertension, one of the highest rates in the world. All this translates into a life expectancy 5.5 years lower than the European Union average. But the real tragedy lies in the paradox of a nation moving at two speeds. While the cities are connecting to Europe, a vast part of the country seems forgotten, trapped in a cycle of poverty, poor education, and ill health. The public debate is dominated by other emergencies, and this deep, silent health crisis unfolding in the countryside never receives the attention it deserves. This perfect storm of inequality, entrenched habits, and political neglect leads to an inevitable result. The outcome is the first dramatic place in this European ranking. 38.2% of Romania's adult population is obese. But this number is nothing compared to what we are about to see next. Obesity in the United States is not just a health problem. It is a $1.7 trillion crisis that even threatens national security. It is the leading cause of military ineligibility, with nearly 1 in 3 young Americans too heavy to enlist. Here, the obesity problem has different roots than in Europe. While in the old continent, it stems from the clash between heavy food traditions and modernity. In America, the entire ecosystem is designed to maximize consumption. The food environment ensures that 60% of calories come from ultra-processed foods, that giant portions are the norm, and that millions live in food deserts without access to fresh produce. The physical environment enforces a sedentary lifestyle. Cities are built for cars, not people, with vast distances and no pedestrian infrastructure. More than 85% of Americans drive to work simply because they have no other choice. The health consequences are a full-blown epidemic. 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes, and 1 in 3 is pre-diabetic. But here too, the impact is different. Unlike Europe's mostly public systems, in the United States, a chronic disease diagnosis can mean personal bankruptcy. And this is where the final paradox emerges: an irreconcilable conflict of interest. The food industry spends billions promoting unhealthy foods, while the healthcare and pharmaceutical industries spend billions treating the resulting diseases. It is a perfect economic cycle in which the poison is sold first, followed by the antidote. This combination of factors leads to a truly alarming figure. 42.9% of the adult population in the United States is obese. If you want to explore the comparison between all European countries, all US states, and all Canadian provinces, we recommend checking out the video on obesity that we have published on our new channel, America versus Europe. And since we often mentioned alcohol as a cause of obesity, we also recommend watching this video, where we reveal the 10 European countries with the highest alcohol consumption per capita. That's all for this video. See you next time!